Before I say anything else, I want you to think of the last person you judged. You don't have to say it out loud, just be honest. Because we all do it, every single one of us. We judge in seconds, and sometimes before someone even speaks. And I know that some of you have already begun to decide something about me as I step onto this stage. Is she kind or not? Smart or not? Pretty or not? Don't worry, she is. This is how this world sees each other. We judge how people look, how they speak, how they act, and even who they sit with. We decide who they are before they decide who to be. And most of the time, we're wrong. I know this because I was wrong too, and I learned this the hard way. At my previous school, I had a friend, a guy, and we talked a lot. We had the same classes such as biology and chemistry. And honestly, I wasn't very good at those subjects, and he was pretty good at those, so I asked him for help almost all the time. We studied together, we talked a lot, and it felt normal. Then, one day, I saw him sitting in the library, so I walked over, sat down, and started to ask him about a lesson I didn't understand. Then, instantly, something felt off. His face was tight, his body was stiff, and his eyes said, "Can you please leave me alone?" I didn't get it at first, so I kept talking and trying to explain my question. And then suddenly he snapped and said, "Can you please stop talking to me?" I froze. You know that feeling when your face gets hot and you don't know if you feel hurt or angry? Yeah, that's what I felt. And I walked away thinking, wow, he's rude. What is wrong with him? The next day, one of my friends pulled me aside and told me everything about him, and I soon found out what had happened. He had lost his mom the day before. Not weeks ago, not long time ago, not recently, the day before. And I remember just standing there. And the moment in the library replayed in my head, but this time I saw it differently. His face, his voice, his silence. That wasn't rudeness. That was grief. Nothing about him changed. Only what I knew did. Psychologists have the name for the mental trap I fell into. It's called the fundamental attribution error. According to the Biola University, it's our habit of judging people by their behavior while excusing ourselves by our circumstances. If someone acts badly, we'll assume it's their personality or it's just who they are. We completely ignore the situation around them and focus only on their personality. But if we act badly, we'll blame the situation by saying, "Oh, I was stressed, I was tired, I was having a bad day." In that moment, instead of thinking, "Oh, maybe something terrible just happened to him," I thought, "Wow, he's rude. What is wrong with him?" I chose judgment over curiosity and understanding, and I was wrong. The scary part is, this doesn't happen once in a while. It happens all the time. And I've been on the other side of it too. There was a moment when I was completely overwhelmed. I had to do my schoolwork, assignments, extracurricular activities, and church commitments. My mind was always racing and I never felt fully present. Then, one day, a girl from my old school came up and talked to me. And honestly, I didn't respond well. It was not because of her, not because I didn't like her, but because I didn't have enough energy to talk to anyone. And at the same time, there were rumors going around about me, so from her perspective, everything lined up perfectly. The rumors, my cool response, my silence. She assumed I was a mean person, someone who didn't want to be friends with certain people, and honestly, I don't blame her. Psychologists call this the halo and horns effect. It's a mental shortcut our brains use when we're low on information and high on judgment. If we notice a good trait, we give them a halo, even without proof. If someone smiles at us, we'll think they're so kind. But if we notice one bad trait, we give them horns. Again, based on little evidence. It's because our brains like efficiency. It's easier to create quick labels than to be curious. One small detail, one interaction, turns into a whole personality in our minds. So let me continue with my story. The next month, we were put in the same class and we had to sit next to each other. At first, it was awkward, but then we talked a little, then a little more. Eventually, we became really close friends. Then, one day, she told me what she had first thought of me and the rumors she had heard. Then, she said something I'll never forget. "You are not what I thought at all. You are actually really kind and compassionate." See? Same person, but different angle. And that's when I realized something really important. First impressions don't just mislead us, they limit us. Another moment that changed how I see people happened in my 6th grade. We were having a water festival at school. Everyone was soaked, laughing, and running around. Then, out of nowhere, a woman started screaming, loud, uncontrolled, panicked. She was crying and yelling so hard that I couldn't even understand what she was saying. Everything stopped. People stared. And one of my friends leaned over and whispered, "Why is she screaming like that? That's so embarrassing." For a moment, I slightly agreed, but not totally. At that moment, what we didn't realize was that our brains were already racing ahead of us. If we don't know the full story, our brains take the mental shortcuts, the fast lightning guesses designed to save time and energy. And through what researchers call the trust lens, we instinctively answer 2 questions before a single word is even spoken. Is this person safe or not? Someone to understand or someone to avoid? The next week, we learned the truth. The woman was screaming that day to call for her son because her son was missing. She wasn't being dramatic. She wasn't unstable. She was terrified. And the feeling, the quiet guilt hit her because we had been so sure and so wrong. We don't see the full story. We see a snapshot and we mistake it for the truth. When we don't slow down and look deeper, we don't just misunderstand people, we risk hurting those who are already carrying more than we can see. So, here's a quick experiment. Today, I'm wearing 2 different earrings. One white and one red. Be honest, how many of you noticed? A few or none? People looked right at me, talked to me, and walked past me, and still nothing. It's because we don't notice as much as we think we do. According to the Harvard Business Review, psychologists call this the transparency illusion. The belief that our inner world is obvious to everyone else, but it's not. Stress doesn't glow. Grief doesn't come with subtitles, and pain doesn't raise its hand and ask to be understood. So when we judge people, we are not reacting to who they are. We are reacting to what we think we see. And that's why so many of our judgments miss the truth. And when we miss the truth, and when we get it wrong, the cause isn't just awkwardness, it's misunderstanding, broken trust, and unnecessary pain. Finally, I want all of us to think about people as a triangular prism. When we first meet someone, we don't see a prism, we see a triangle. One flat surface, one angle. That's the first impression. Then we start building stories, assumptions stacked on top of assumptions, a neat little pyramid is formed. But people aren't pyramids, they are prisms. So to understand a prism, you can't just stand still. You have to move, walk around, and change your angle. Only then do the other sides appear. Like the small ones that you missed at first. Like the mismatched earrings that you don't notice until someone points them out. But here's the thing about prisms. Every prism casts a shadow. The part that people don't see at first glance. The pain, the pressure, the fear people carry quietly. But here's the thing about prism, and here's the thing about shadows. They don't disappear, they shift. When the light moves, the shadow moves. When your perspective changes, the story changes. Then something else happens. The light bends. That's called the refraction. And that's the moment when new information suddenly clicks. Oh, that's why. Oh, now I understand. And if you stay long enough, listen carefully enough, and keep changing your angle, the prism does something extraordinarily beautiful. It creates a rainbow. Not a single color, the whole spectrum. Complex, contradictory, human. Science tells us first impressions are incomplete. Life teaches us they are often wrong. And the prism reminds us of something even more important. Every person has more sides, more shadows, and more colors than we ever see at first glance. We just have to slow down enough to see the rainbow. So, change your angle, change your perspective, and let the story change. Thank you.